And good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to our CalVet webinar for Rational Communication Techniques. My name is Kirk Eller. I am a training coordinator here in the CalTAP unit for the California Department of Veteran Affairs. And on behalf of everyone in my unit and CalVet, we want to thank you for joining us for this webinar this morning. Everybody's still kind of trickling in from the waiting room, so we'll give them just a couple more minutes. And I'll go ahead and begin and go over some housekeeping. We want to first start off that if you look on the bottom of your toolbar, you should have a chat and a Q&A function. If you could please open the Q&A tab if you have any questions throughout this webinar. We will be addressing those Q&A and those questions in the Q&A tab only. My colleague, Sherry Nuez, is going to be putting some informational resources and links in the chat. If you open that up as well, she'll be posting some information in the chat so that you can access that as well. And there will be some documents that you can download and save from the chat function. Okay, so with the agenda, we're going to begin. I will be going over the CalTAP overview briefly, telling you what your California benefits are, how to access them, and how to use CalTAP online. And then we're going to follow up with our local interagency network coordinator, who is Merlene Steinbeck from the Inland Empire region, and she's going to tell you what her roles and responsibilities are as a link coordinator. And then we're going to follow up with our main guest keynote speaker, Mr. Robert Storr. He is the executive director from US Vets, and he's going to be talking about rational communication and techniques, which is under mental health. And then we will follow up at the end. My colleague Sherry, all panelists will be on the Q&A. We will camera on, and we will be there answering your questions as you put them in the Q&A function. So with that being said, further ado, we will move forward with the presentation. So the CalTAP overview, you can access the CalTAP overview from the CalVet website. If you go to calvet.ca.gov and click on the CalTAP tab, you can access the portal there. And CalTAP was actually designed to inform and connect veterans of all eras what their earned state and federal benefits are. And we would like to provide that continued support and continuum of care as those needs change over time. And how we do that is through 5 pathways: our core curriculum, education, employment, and entrepreneurship. The 5th pathway, is geared towards service providers who want to work with veterans and provides training opportunities for them. So our California Department of Veteran Affairs resource book is a very valuable resource that we like to share with you. Our chat function is going to have this downloaded. You can download this from the chat, and you can actually put it on your mobile device or your computer as a PDF and save it. Or you can just go to the link and access it through our website that way. But it's a very valuable tool. It has a lot of information from not just the state information and benefits, but also on the federal side and nonprofit organizations as well. So this is how you would use CalTAP online. If you go to our website at calvet.ca.gov, this is the function. If you go to the highlighted portion there where the laptop is and you click on the CalTAP, we'll take you to the CalTAP portal. And here you're going to see all of our 5 pathways that were mentioned before. And we're going to focus real quickly on the core curriculum pathway, which is going to be indicative of what your California specific benefits are. If you click on that link, you'll see each of these self-paced modules that you can access the information at your own pace. And I highly encourage you to go through those depending on which topic you may be interested in, whether it's healthcare, claims of compensation, or just the introduction. But we'll focus right now on Module 5, which is your California benefits. And this is briefly what your California benefits are. I'm going to go through this rather quickly. If you have any questions about what these benefits are or more details, we can go through them in the Q&A. Your benefits begin on Chapter 1 in the resource book for California. And you can see the different regions there on page 13 in the book. It does highlight some of the regional outreach where the links are located. So your California specific benefits, one of the most popular benefits is the college tuition fee waiver. This is a dependent fee benefit for veteran dependents, and it waives the tuition at any state-funded school for veterans who have a service-connected disability rating from the VA of either 0% up to 100%. They have to attend a state-funded school, whether it's a community college, a CSU, or a UC. We also get a lot of calls about veteran designation on your driver's license and how you can access that and how to apply. We coordinate with the county veteran service offices for both of those benefits, the fee waiver and the driver's license. And you would have this put on your license as a veteran for you to enable to show that you're a veteran. There's also the motor vehicle registration fee waiver for veterans who have a service-connected disability of 100%. And they have mobility issues. They can have the registrations for their vehicles waived. If you have a service-connected disability rating of 50% or greater, you will be eligible for reduced fishing and hunting license in the state of California, and also a distinguished veterans park pass for any state park if you have the eligibility. If you have a service-connected disability rating of 100%, you can have your property tax exempt in the county where you reside. And also any business tax or license fees will also be exempt in the county that you reside in. For those two benefits, I would highly recommend that you contact your local county or city where you pay your local taxes to find out what benefit you're eligible for. This is what our CalVet divisions are. We work in the CalTAP unit is in veteran services. We receive calls from veterans through our 800 number, but there's also other units within veteran services that assist veterans in many ways. We have a home loans division, which is very popular for the CalVet home loans, and also our women veterans and our minority veterans, which provide advocacy and outreach for those demographics that need assistance specifically to them. There's also homes for long-term care, which is our 8 homes throughout the state of California, and they provide nursing care and skilled nursing facilities, independent living, and there's 8 locations throughout the state of California for our CalVet homes. We also have 3 cemeteries and a 4th one, which is in the works in Southern California right now. So if you go to our website, any one of these divisions, you can read more about information about those divisions on our website. Other common websites you should be knowledgeable of are obviously the VA. This is where you would access all of your VA benefits. You can manage them through My VA. This is the 4 access points that you would receive here. You would obviously need to sign in and create your account, and then you would be able to manage those benefits through their portal. So this is how we would like to stay connected with you and provide that continued support options we mentioned in the beginning. If you go to CalTAP at calvet.ca.gov and send your non-DoD email, we would like to provide that to our resources so that we can send you a flyer or a newsletter to stay connected with you. You can also register on our homepage for My CalVet, and then you will also be receiving our monthly newsletter, which has a lot of informational guides and monthly resources and webinars like this. You can also add us on social media, which is linked there, the Instagram, Facebook, and we have a YouTube page as well, which I highly encourage you to visit because a lot of these webinars we record and upload to our YouTube channel. This webinar will also be recorded and uploaded to the YouTube page at a later date. So when you attend webinars like this, you can receive surveys like the one that's here. Just hit that QR code and go to our survey, or the link which is in the bottom of that link there. You can actually provide feedback for this webinar and tell us your reasons why you like or did not like, or give us some feedback on what we can do to continually improve. And we do take that input seriously so that we can continue to provide that option and support and resources that you're looking for. This is the My CalVet option. If you click on that and register, you will receive our monthly newsletter, which looks like this. You'll get a message from our Deputy Secretary, Mr. Keith Boylan, and you'll see our CalTAP team, access to webinars and be able to register there on the workshops, and then a whole bunch of information in the news and valuable resources and links available to you on our newsletter. So check it out, sign up for My CalVet, and you'll receive that monthly. This is my contact information. Please don't hesitate to email me if you have any questions, or you can call the 800 number there. We do pride ourselves here at CalVet to answer that phone with a live person. I receive calls every day, as well as my colleagues. So if somebody does not answer that phone, we will be returning your call. So please leave a message and we'll get back to you with whatever your questions are. Okay, now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Merlene Steinbeck. She's here from the Inland Empire down there in Yucca Valley, and she's going to tell you what her roles and responsibilities are. Good morning, Merlene.
Good morning, Kirk. Thanks so much for having me today and letting me tell you guys about what we do as links. So I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Merlene Steinbeck. My role is the Inland Empire, which includes Inyo, Mono, San Bernardino, Riverside counties. Next slide, please. So if you can take a look, there are 8 of us in the state of California. If I am not your representative, feel free to reach out to any of these people here. We're all very responsive. And also it's in the book on page 13, but you can access our book online as well. I think Kirk was talking about that. And you could get our direct emails. Plus, they're gonna go ahead and send you a map in the chat right now. But as you can see, we represent various different regions. Each region I find has very different needs. Just looking at the map, you could tell that my region is very diverse as far as like how much distance is in there compared to, say, Orange County. But in Orange County, there's just as many veterans as my entire district. Some of the challenges in my district would be like access to medical care because of the transportation issues out here, that sort of thing. Each of us have contacts in all of the clinics. We do direct handoffs. We can, get you in touch with somebody that can help in any of the situations that you have coming up. Next slide, please. Some of the things that we do is we provide outreach to service members, veterans, and their families. We make referrals and work directly with the established service providers in our networks. Established service providers could be somebody at a vet center. I had a girl yesterday call me and say that she needed assistance with mental health. Another thing that we do is we go to different emergency sites and we help and assist veterans on site. For example, as you could see that if my coworker can't handle all of the emergency resource centers in their area, if there's 10 of them, they're going to call on some of the other links. So we could go out there and assist them. So we get deployed and we go to different areas of California. We also provide leadership and advocacy to local communities. I meet with directors of the VBA, VHA, of the cemetery, of every single organization in my district, and advocate for my veterans. So if you need anything, you can go ahead and reach out to us directly. Next slide. Some of the benefits that we have that the links can offer is assistance with getting you in touch with somebody at an American Job Center that at the EDD department who is either a leaver or DBOP that can help you with employment and training and get you into a job position. Another one is the County Veteran Service Office. We have direct contacts at every single county veteran service office, as well as CalVet, of course, because we work here. And then at the VA medical centers, the vet centers, all of the clinics, we're a great resource in the community. Next slide. So this is my contact information. If you want to go ahead and reach out to me directly, I have no problem assisting you with any of your needs.
Thank you, Merlene. We appreciate you logging in today and joining us, telling what you do out there in the Inland Empire. So if you need to contact Merlene for anything, she can give you that warm handoff. So please feel free to contact her and she can assist you in any of your needs. So now I'm going to introduce Robert Storr. He is the Executive Director for the U.S. Vets. First, I'd like to, Robert, before you begin, I'd like to give a disclaimer to anybody in the Q&A portion. If they put any questions in there, please try to keep them as general as possible, and please don't put any personal information in there. This is an open forum, and we would like to protect your identities and your information in your privacy. So with that being said, if you need to reach out, you can contact Mr. Storr personally if you have any of those personalized questions. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Robert, and let you begin your presentation. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Kirk, and thanks for having me this morning. I put some bright clouds in the background so we can have some optimism about the sun coming out again. I hope everybody's surviving the rain. Pleasure to be here this morning. Quick brief view on US Vets. We're the largest nonprofit across the country supporting veterans in transition. That means new veterans, veterans that have transitioned out of the service a while ago, and we do that through housing facilities, mental health, employment, and a specific program for women at my site here in Patriotic Hall. We have a site in LA, Inglewood, Long Beach, Hawaii, DC, Houston, Phoenix, Preston, Vegas, and soon to be the largest facility in the country at the West Los Angeles VA here, which will make it over 30, I think, residential facilities. Next slide. So I want to tell you this morning, I have been a psychotherapist for over 30 years. The information I'm going to give you has been taught to executives, has been taught to couples, has been taught to the staff at US Vets. And I want to guarantee you that it works, primarily because I've done this for 30 years and I am a skeptic. Even though I'm a licensed marriage, family, child therapist, it always takes me experience to determine if something is useful and how useful. This information I'm giving you changed my life, continues to change lives with the people I work with. And it's largely about communication. So I'm going to teach you some very simple, fast techniques you can use. And it is going to be deceptively simple or seem deceptively simple. And I hope you can get some nuggets from it today. So I always like to say, think about what you want to get today. And I'm going to talk a lot about what you want. And I'm going to talk about ways that you can retrain your brain. The amazing concept about your brain is it has what we call neuroplasticity, which means you have the ability to change it. And if you have not really worked in therapy, 12-step programs, or some form of support or help, this might be a great opportunity for you to start. Next slide. So basically, a couple of quick rules that I think are sort of fun and guidelines. And this is one of the nuggets you can take away from today. The idea that we love a spontaneous life is great, but really, if we practice self-discipline and we structure our lives, it allows for a greater sense of spontaneity. Spontaneity allows us for a greater sense of direction. And we do that through these basic premises in the last bullet point there. That is, you have to know several things in life, but only 4 that I'm going to focus on: what you feel and what you don't want, and what you think and what you want. Now, that seems easy enough on the surface, but a lot of us talk about what we would like, what we should do, what we have to, or what we need to do. I'm going to hopefully give you some insight as to why that is not the best strategy. Next slide. So basically, I'm going to start by just talking about the theoretical approach. I'm not going to go into this deeply, but it's important for you to understand. At any given time, you're coming from one of these 3 points in your mind: a parental point, a child ego state, or an adult. Now, if you think of these really easily, Eric Byrne did these in the early 60s. The last time you were at an amusement park, do you think you were accessing your parent ego state or your child? Well, if you were laughing, having fun, screaming on the roller coaster, of course, you were cathecting, is what the psychological term is, to your child ego state. Why is that important? Because your child ego state has all your dreams, aspirations, your wants, your inspiration, your creativity. Your parent state has all of the rules that you've learned to live by. And the adult state is the state I'm using right now to share information. So at any given time in the day in our lives, we're operating from one of those ego states. The problem with a lot of us is based on the parental states we grew up with, which are sort of reflections of our parents. Your child may be shut down. The way to assess that is, when was the last time you laughed, had fun, accessed your creativity, smiled, enjoyed your life, had spontaneous pleasure within your structure, of course. And if you're not having a lot of that, then it's important you access that. And you access that through communication by sharing what you want. Basically, if you ask anyone under 5, or you tell them what they should do, they will tell you what they want to do. The problem is, as adults, we've talked ourselves or been trained not to access that. That kills our spontaneity and joy and limits our mental health to what we should, need to, or have to do. So I'm going to teach you how to operate. If you see the adult, again, that's sort of the computer in the brain. It gives information, but you see it overlaps the child and it overlaps the parent. That means sometimes you'll see, even in my presentation where I'm having fun laughing or making a small joke, that's because I'm accessing that part of the child. And you'll see the parental part of me where I'm trying to nurture and give you some information. Next slide. So to sum that up real briefly, let's think of this. The parent's a state in which people behave, feel, and think in response to an unconscious mimicking of how their parents were. Unconscious is the key there. If you're not aware already, the neurological pathways in your brain in which you're operating out were established a long time ago. That's why many therapists will spend time on your childhood by the decisions you made about what your parents taught you. Now, that can be really good because they taught you to brush your teeth, go to bed on time, take care of yourself. But if they were overly critical, demanding, they might have taught you that you needed to do it someone else's way, which again will kill your joy. The adult, again, is the part of our mind that I'm using right now to exchange information. And again, the child part of us is a source of emotions, creation, recreation, spontaneity, and intimacy. So how do we get back to balancing so we're making sure we're accessing the child a lot of the time and responding to the parents? And if you want to think about how that parental ego state is operating, take just a minute right now and think about your parents. Were they nurturing, loving? Did you laugh a lot? Did you create a lot? Did you have the opportunity for joy? Did they give you a lot of freedom and support for who you were and what you wanted? Hopefully the answer is yes, and then you're probably not going to need a lot of this. Did they? On the other hand, were they overly critical? Were they demanding? Did they require you to operate by their set of rules, which they do? And how did that work out for you? Next slide. So I'm going to teach you briefly how people can mess up your communication. This is from a book called Games People Play that Eric Byrne wrote. He wrote to be careful that some people who are not operating from a healthy adult, who might be overly infected by a critical parent, may operate that way with you, either as your boss or your partner, as your wife, your husband, coworker, colleague, friend. So be cautious if you see people being evasive. If you're in a relationship with somebody and they don't tend to give you a straight answer, or they don't tend to want to operate with negotiating with you about things, they change the subject, they avoid the subject, they shut it down, that's evasive. Condescending is, I think I'm better than you, or even worse, I think you're better than me. Which of those is worse? I think you're better than me, because that makes us a victim of everybody else. Be secretive. If you really want to sabotage communication, don't give people the information. They have no ability to operate with that information, and you'll control the power. However, you won't have a very happy person on the other side. The other way is to be abrupt. Share yes, no, maybe, perhaps. Don't give people a full answer. So if you run into any of those, I'll tell you how to deal with those in just a minute. Next slide. So I want to teach you some very simple communication in different ways that we operate in relationship. There are three main ways, and you can think of this again as your boss or your parent, friends, colleagues, your mate, whatever. People either try to intimidate. A lot of people in power will say, do it my way because I say so. Anybody in the service may remember you were not asked to think about a lot of what they were asked to do. You were told to do it their way. That's not bad in terms of controlling people, but in the world, you need to be able to figure out what your way is, and you be able to go to number two, which is negotiate. Listen to what you want to get done, and I will make a contract to get it done with you, and we can renegotiate. My boss is a wonderful example of somebody who operates from a negotiable stance. He'll send out an email with specific directions of what we're to accomplish, tell us when we need to get it done, what to get done, and he will ask us to send back an email acknowledging that, which is basically a contract that you're going to do it. Now, you'll see in that last part, you can still renegotiate. The last part is something I used to practice a lot before I got pretty healthy. Only took me 30 years as a therapist, but that's seduction. If I'm a really nice guy, if I promise to pay you more, give you a reward, more time off, better pay, will you do it my way? The answer is yes, temporarily, until you request more pay, a better job, more time off, a different opportunity. The reality is, although nice guy, nice woman is a wonderful way to operate in the world, it often puts you in a position of being taken advantage of, because you're not negotiating. You're offering somebody sort of a prize to do something your way. People have short-term motivation with salary, but they don't have long-term motivation. They have long-term motivation when you ask them what they want and you share with them how they can get there together with you. Next slide. So again, real simple communication I want you to learn today, and this is one of the nuggets I want you to take out. It takes about 30 days to establish a habit. If you want to start to retrain your brain to operate from a healthy, childlike stance with an adult perspective, start thinking about what you want and what you don't want. And when you get done with this, or sometime in the next few days, write down what you want in career or relationship. And you will begin to see that may be different from what you are doing, where you are, or how you're operating. And it may take you a while to get there. A lot of people, when I'm working on private practice and therapy, I'll ask them what they want and they don't know the answer to that. That usually tells me that they haven't accessed that part of their brain. And again, that's the creative, inspirational part of our brain. The statement why is not necessarily a bad statement. Why did you turn your paper in this way? Why did you complete the assignment like that? But oftentimes it invites us to defend and explain. It's sometimes used to attack people. Why did you do it that way? I'll give you an example. My father, growing up, always had us turning lights off in specific rooms. Why are the lights on? Well, it wasn't because the electricity was flowing through the wires to connect to the bulb. It was, why didn't you turn them off? Explain to me why you didn't operate with the rules that I set for you. So a better question there is, what are your reasons or my reasons? I wish, it's great to daydream, but people say this all the time. I would like to go there. I would like to do this. I would like to be successful. How about if you tell me I want to be successful? Does that sound a little more potent? Does that sound like that's coming from a center of you that you might actually achieve rather than fantasize? I will try. If I tell you I'll try to have lunch with you next week, do you think I will show up? I will try is often used to con you into thinking that I will do it your way. In reality, I just didn't want to tell you no. So we like to use the phrase, I'll do it unless I change my mind, unless you choose, of course, not to do it. Again, nothing wrong with may I or can I, as long as you put them after what you want. Instead of always asking for permission to have what you want, how about you share what you want and then ask for permission? Gives you a little more potency. Would it be all right? Could we, again, if someone says, let's go to the store, let's go out to dinner, are they asking you if you want to, or are they requiring you to attend by giving you a subtle order? So again, I want, do you want? And the last one is my least favorite. If someone ever tells me, which has happened, of course, I need you to do this by Friday. Remember, we only need 5 things: food, air, water, shelter, and the last thing is strokes. We need to be heard and known. The rest is all optional. I don't need to go to work. I want to go to work. I don't need to go to bed at a certain time, but I want to go if I'm going to get up and, take advantage of daylight savings time. All right, next slide. So very quickly, I'm going to talk to you a lot about rational versus emotional and why this is important for your mental health. All of us operate a lot from our feelings. Now, the interesting thing about our feelings is sometimes they're connected to what's happening in front of us, and sometimes they're connected to triggers from our old behavior. Someone may say something to me that I may think is very condescending, when in fact, that's just the way they talk. And I may feel hurt and I may feel upset. If I react when I disagree or feel like they played a game with me or said something I didn't like, oftentimes you will get into an argument that results in you saying things that you regret later, right? So the idea is to feel your feelings, pause, think about them, practice some impulse control, and then choose your action. The other way that's just really a good example of is at work. Oftentimes in email or text, it's easy to misread people's intentions, and we make assumptions about what we're hearing. And sometimes those assumptions are based on our own history. They have nothing to do with the other person. So you may feel hurt, upset, or they may have said something condescending to you in the email, or you may take it as condescending. Instead of reacting and writing back with a really quick dash of how you are feeling at the moment, which may not be very nice. And in business, we try not to influx too many feelings. We try to really be rational at work and operate with that adult perspective. Go ahead and write it down in the email. I'll do this sometimes, not as much anymore, but I'll do this and I'll make sure I don't put that person's name in the to line because I don't want to accidentally send it. And then what it will do is it will discharge the feeling. It will allow me to calm down. I'll have said what I feel. I don't intend usually to share any of that. It's just my hurt feelings, which I wanted to get out. Then I'll let it sit for an hour, sometimes 24 hours, go back, take out all the emotion and write out what I really want and think, or the contract I wanted to develop. So be really careful about operating from what you feel and reacting, and take a pause. Next slide. Continuing on with that idea that we can really look at how we feel, what we choose, and what we act. For those of you who are dealing with some form of depression, anxiety, or have done it in the past, or may still be stuck in it, it's very important that you understand what's happening with you. The bulk of depression and anxiety is because you have not been able to share what you want and negotiate it, or say no to what you don't want and take care of your feelings. So oftentimes we feel uncomfortable and we think we want to do something, but we feel afraid to do it. So we think we want to, but we're not going to. So we try to think of alternatives. Then we go back to feeling about that. Will that work? One of the best examples I can use of this personally, had an opportunity several years ago in my career to move back to my home state of Minnesota with a really wonderful job opportunity. Problem was I had a really great opportunity here. The asset was I had my family there. So I could go back and be with my family, do that wonderful job. I could stay here and be with my friends and live in this wonderful state. I could go back to cold Minnesota. I could stay here in warm California. I would go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Now, it didn't necessarily get me into depression at the time, but it stopped me from making a decision. So oftentimes the quickest way out of a negative feeling is a positive decision followed by action as quickly as possible. I'll give you another example. I tend to be a bit of a perfectionist. That might be an understatement. So whenever I do a presentation, I have to read all the latest, greatest books, top 5 articles, do my PowerPoint, redo my PowerPoint, redo my PowerPoint, practice, do my PowerPoint, redo my PowerPoint. Well, when I sit down and decide that I'm going to get ready for a presentation, oftentimes I start to get immobile. I'm like, I don't want to go read. I don't want to think about what I'm supposed to do. I really just want to sit on the couch and watch this amazing television show that I've been streaming, right? So in order to get out of that immobile state, I often just get up and I pull up the PowerPoint, not with the idea I'm going to read it, research it, or redo it, just with the idea I'm going to start working on it. What that does almost instantaneously, and I can tell you this about any task that you're avoiding or any job that you think may be too difficult, it immediately restarts your motivation and gets you out of that rumination, that stuck phase. So just a little quick key, the quickest way out of that negative feeling when you're not feeling really good, make a positive decision and follow by action as quickly as possible. Next slide. So let's do a little stress reduction real time right here. I want you to think of a situation in your life that you're currently worried about, thinking about, trying to process, trying to figure out. And I want you to think about how you feel. Do you feel anxious about it? Do you feel sad? Do you feel excited? I go from presenting this to feeling really a little bit anxious to super excited by the time I get here. Either way, think about that right now with me. Think of whatever you want in your personal life that you're working on, because we're all working on something. We're coming out of the pandemic for number one. And this is about taking care of yourself. So as you think about the feeling, I want you to take a deep, slow breath with me through your nose, hold it for a few minutes, and then blow it out. So quickly, in the count of 2, 1, 2, hold it. 3, 4, let it out. Do that one more time. 1, 2, hold it and let it out. 3, 4. Now, what you've just done is relaxed your body. If you take nothing away from today, the quickest way out of anxiety is to remember this: I cannot be relaxed and anxious at the same time. So if I want to feel better, if I want to discharge that feeling from what it was a few minutes ago, hurt, anger, frustration, train your body to relax and then think about the feeling, and you will train your body to associate relaxation. Now, it takes about 30 days to establish habit. So people with high anxiety or dealing with depression, I ask them to do that like every night before they go to bed. Just lay in your bed before you go to sleep and start to relax yourself. The next thing to do as you're breathing is let your shoulders drop and then start imagining like a big wave of relaxation going through your body. This will really help you understand how to take care of your anxiety and depression. So just one of the key nuggets for today. Next message. So very quickly, I'm going to teach you a couple of quick tools in this last part. And there's some really important aspects for this tool. This is about how you negotiate with someone if you're in a tough place, by telling them basically they're okay, what you want or don't want, and what you agree to do in the contract. Now, here's the point that I want you to get. The tool can be sometimes difficult, but the most important piece of it is that first part, the stroke. If you've ever been in an argument with anybody, the reason people raise their voice or they fight with you or they try to convince you your way, that it's better to do it their way, is largely because they do want you to hear their point of view. They may not even really want you to do it their way. But the reality is, if you don't hear that, they will often get elevated. So one of the key components of this tool is, if you are with somebody struggling to figure out how to get through a particular situation, is say something like, you have every right, even if they're wrong, or I recognize, understand, or appreciate that you want to go shopping tonight, or that you want to have Chinese food, or that you want to move to Northern California, or that you want to take a vacation in Hawaii, even though I want to, go to a cruise of Europe. I mean, when you say that, when you move over to that position, what it does is it allows you empathy. It allows you to connect to the other person. So before you go into what you want and I don't want, because most fights are, I want to go here, I want to go here, I want to do this, I want to do this. Well, that elevates, as I mentioned before, and you tend to react and you tend to say things, like, you stupid idiot, why didn't you do it? Why didn't you do it my way? So by reminding someone, you have every right to want to take a cruise in Europe. I don't want to do that, but would you be willing to negotiate? I actually just went through all three steps there. I understand, I recognize your point of view is this. This is also great. And I try to avoid this at all costs, because I have 4 brothers. 2 have various political beliefs on one side, and 2 of us have political beliefs on the other side, and one of us I don't think cares. So when we get into discussions, because we're all a little bit stubborn, we will often fight for our point of view. So oftentimes you've got to tell people it's okay to have your point of view. This happened to me on a plane not long ago. A woman I was sitting next to began to tell me all her political views. It was clear that she wanted me to think like her. They happened to be oppositional to what I wanted. But, I said, she looked at me and expected me to argue. And I said, oh, no, well, of course you have a right to think that. She goes, well, I know people don't. And I'm like, doesn't matter. I said, that's your opinion. I respect that. It's none of my business, and if you want, I would share my opinion. The moment I don't think I did. But that often will diffuse the situation. Next slide. So just a couple more quick tools, and then we will finish up here. So again, same tool for 4-step cleanup. The rule here is, if you're going to talk about a difficult subject, don't just go bomb somebody with it. If you're talking about your marriage or your relationship or a promotion or a different change at work, and you think it's going to be difficult, make an appointment and then introduce the subject. Can we talk about our relationship later on and how we can do better? And then that will prepare the person rather than just bombing them. Then you go through the same 3 stones, same 3 things listed below: stroke, stand, and contract. Last tool, next slide. Oftentimes we run into people who, as I mentioned, are evasive, secretive, or they're not sharing how they feel. And so you feel sort of locked out, in which case, and sometimes they may not know, you can say something like, I sense by the look on your face, or I think by the way you've been acting, or I believe. This happens sometimes when people get upset. They don't want to talk to you, that you're upset. I think you're angry about something, or I'm picking up that you're really unhappy. The one thing you don't say is, I feel that you are, because I can't feel your feelings. Next slide. And the last thing you do is you respect their right and say, am I right? I sense you're upset this morning. Am I right? If they say yes, great. Let's, thanks for being open. Let's talk about it, or something to do. If they say no, with the look on that face, well, all right, maybe you do feel it, but you don't want to share it. So if you change your mind later, let me know. And if you say yes, is there something I can do to fix it? So again, I sense, I think, or I believe is for people who not communicate well with you, or having trouble, or maybe had a critical parent and they don't have a right to. So you can help flush the feeling up for them and help them connect to it and then work with it. Last slide. I think we're on the last slide. So here's the ending statement I want you to take away from this one. I want to wish you good mental health. I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank all my friends at CalTAP and CalVet for the amazing work you all do together, and for having me here today. And I want to remind you that the only way you know you love or trust yourself or another human being is the contracts you're willing to make and keep. So think about what you want, think about you will do, and commit to change your language, the words that actually facilitate that little kid part in you getting up, out, and enjoying life. Thanks for having me today. I'll open it up to any questions, thoughts, anything anybody heard that they want to share or would like to ask me about.
Thank you very much, Robert. That was an excellent presentation. I know I can get some takeaways from that myself to enhance my communication. So anything that we can use in those tools is a great opportunity for us to improve ourselves. So I appreciate you providing that information. So, we have my colleague, Cherie Nuez, is running the back on the Q&A. I have to apologize. I think we did have somebody logged on who was I think they were meeting with the CNP exam, so they had some questions in the Q&A that were more relative to their CNP, so we kind of removed those, so my apologies. So Cherie, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you address some of the questions. I don't see any there now, but perhaps they will have some. If they do, put them in the Q&A and we can address them.
Most definitely. Yes, I've since helped out that person who logged on earlier, gave them some contact information so they can get redirected.
Right.
But currently right now, there are no question and answers. But again, want to thank Robert for an amazing presentation. I greatly appreciate it. I have someone holding their hand up. I'd like to encourage you, whoever you're holding their hand up, go ahead and type your question in the chat there. We'll be able to ask it on your behalf.
Yeah, and the person with the hand up, if they're not quite sure, just go to the bottom toolbar. There's a little Q&A tab there. Just click that Q&A and the Q&A should open up and you can type your message or question in there.
And while we're waiting, I'll just share some information. As I mentioned, I shared with you, I've been a therapist for 30 years. And this information was really developed by Eric Byrne and then adapted by the woman I had the privilege of working and being mentored with. And she taught me almost immediately from the very beginning of my internship, the importance of being able to say what I want and will do about things. I had grown up with a very strong, strict father, sergeant in the Army, by the way, and this is how he ruled the 5 boys. And generally, we did everything his way without question or without response. So when I became an adult, I wasn't used to speaking up for myself. I wasn't used to asking for what I want. And this information changed my life. It gave me a lot more permission to go through my life and negotiate. And most people will negotiate with you. And those of you who don't have permission to negotiate, there are people out there that will take advantage of that. So very important information. And Cherie, thank you for being here today.
Happy to be here.
We'll leave the Q&A open, and we have about 15 more minutes of question time. So, just having an open forum and a discussion here about the content of your presentation. I like the rumination part because I'm a procrastinator myself, so I can relate to your information and, getting up and getting away from watching a baseball game on TV and I have to do something. So, yeah, guilty as charged. But once I do, you are correct. I see that once you actually motivate yourself to get up out of that atmosphere or that situation that you're in and focus on the task at hand, it does get much easier to tackle those issues, even though you've been putting them off to stay a little bit focused. So,
yeah, no, thank you for that, Kirk. I think a lot of times, if we don't have a level of expertise or understanding, or it's just going to be a lot of work to do a particular task, or like I said, if you're a perfectionist about something and your mind makes up a bunch of stuff about how difficult it's going to be or that you can't do it. I've had to learn a long time ago. I will try to do it perfectly and my mind will sit me down and say, I bet you can't do it. And then I will start to become immobile. And almost immediately after I make that change, after I drag myself over to my computer, the energy will shift. So remember that the quickest way out of a negative feeling is to make a positive decision. So if you're not feeling good about something, figure out what you can do, or in some cases, what you don't want to do. And then either exercise, go for it real quickly, or figure out a time you want to go for it, or step away from it and then go for it. But just do it, to coin a Nike phrase, because it will help you change
Absolutely.
the momentum.
Yeah.
And I promise you that if you practice this for 30 days, here's the thing about psychology, and I've shared as a counselor, change is slow and change is difficult. Those neurological pathways I talked about were established between the ages of 0 and 3 or 0 and 5, largely speaking. And they're pretty firmly imprinted in there. So you may have messages in your head that you're not okay, that you're not enough, that you're not going to be able to do it, that you need to do it perfectly, that you need to do it this way. You have to fight with them. You have to fight with them and figure out, one, give yourself the unconditional stroke. I'm okay no matter how I do it, no how perfect or imperfect it is, it's going to be okay. And this is what I will do to get through this experience. And if you really practice that, if you really practice saying what you want and think, and if you listen to people around you, listen to how many people tell you what they would like to do. I work as a private practitioner and therapist part-time when I'm not working at US Vets. And when I hear people, when we start to talk about change, and they will, I would like to do that, or I would like to do this, I will always go back, well, tell me what you want to do. And if you hear the difference in that, what I want to do is a commitment. And people that are afraid they can't do it oftentimes will not say I want. And that's fear-based, based on stuff that usually are feelings that aren't true. We can do almost anything that our capable abilities will allow us, but our mind will limit us based on how much fun, freedom, child there is active in us. So I encourage you to practice this.
Right.
It does look like we have, thank you for that, Robert. We had 2 questions come in during that time. So I think with our conversation there, thank you, Kirk. We prompted a few questions, actually 3 now that came in. So the first question is, how do we communicate with people who write with negotiation style, but verbalize intimidatingly?
Oh, that's a really good question. Thank you for that. What you have to do, first of all, is you have to anchor yourself and do your best not to take it personally, but realize they're coming from probably their family perspective. And that happens a lot at work, especially depending on some people's background. You can use the stroke and stand, which is a stroke is I really appreciate or recognize you want me to do it that way. And I always, instead of saying what I want or will you, I would say, would you be willing? Oftentimes is a phrase I would you be willing to consider this? Would you be willing to do that? Most important though, when people try to intimidate you is remember, you have the power in terms of how you react to that. You will feel small or feel ineffective. But if you do the work to know I'm okay, this is where they're coming from. And that will change the way you respond to them. Because people usually intimidate those people they think can be intimidated. If you don't react and you just respond to what they're asking, oftentimes that will change the dynamic within yourself, which is what we have most control over.
Thank you. The next question is this challenging one, dynamic, is best way to discuss family finances. My wife and I have different goals.
Thank you for that, Manny. I mean, the reality is I've done 30 years of relationship work with people. And let me tell you, people always marry their opposite or some complement of that. So they're almost always functioning different. And the most specific areas they fight about are money, kids, and how often they're having intimate times together. So the reality is everybody in every relationship, I learned it about the first 4 weeks I was a therapist. He was a night person, she was a day person. He was a spender, she was a saver. So you do have to negotiate, which is what, I was talking about earlier. The best way is to set up an appointment and say, I want to take some time for us to talk about our finances and to write down in advance what you want and don't want and ask her what she wants and doesn't want, and see if you can come to a compromise in the middle, because relationships are hard work and they're about compromise, and then compromise again. And if people don't understand how to do that, that creates a really bad dynamic in the relationship, because again, you do things differently. So you have to learn to compromise and do it that way. And the other thing is to get a neutral party involved, like an accountant or a financial advisor. And that way they can really figure out what's best for both of you.
Great.
Thank you. The next question is from Marcus. What was the 5th need that you spoke on? Food, water, air, shelter, and then one other word.
Thank you, Marcus. One of the most important things I talk about over and over again: food, water, air, shelter. The one thing that we don't do a lot of, which is where a lot of us suffer, and this is very, very important, so thank you for that question, is we need strokes. We need someone to hear and know who we are and how we function in the world. If you have come through the pandemic, which all of us have, and are aware of how you're feeling, most of us sort of have a pandemic hangover, which means we're struggling with the isolation that was imposed by that awful period of time. So a lot of us, if you're not married or in a relationship or not in a place where you have a successful conversation with the friends and people around you, you have to find at least one person, preferably 2 or 3, that you can talk about anything you want to talk about. You have to be heard and known. You have to be able to represent yourself. It's fine if I want to share what I want in a vacuum here, but if I'm able to share it with the people I care about or with a professional, in some cases that might be the best thing, I'll become clear. And I promise you, it will change your life. But that part about being strokes, people really suffer from not being heard and known. It's sort of a quiet suffer. It's usually depression or anxiety. So find people that love and care about you and that allow you to be you. That'd be the best advice there.
Great.
We had one more question as a follow-up question to the previous one, and as far as communication goes. Is it right to interpret as set for failure if the relationship is boss subordinate?
That's a tricky one. It depends on if they're teachable or not. Again, the bulk of that work, if you're in a subordinate relationship with a powerful boss who manages by intimidation, is to make sure you're okay. Quite frankly, if I'm in a position now at this point in my career, but several years back as I grew and developed as an individual, I won't be able to function in an intimidating relationship where I'm not respected enough to be able to negotiate. But that's a big decision, you know, and the first and foremost thing to say is always, 1, first, take care of yourself and know you're okay. 2, see if you can find a way to listen to your boss. The last thing I'll tell you about that is emotional people often can't negotiate or they don't know how. So sometimes you have to do what I call belly up. I'm going to do it your way, but then I'll figure out how to do it my way. And if you're successful at your job, often you can get away with doing that. So sometimes just don't get into the conflict, take the direction, and then figure out how you want to do it and get back into taking better care of yourself.
Great points. Okay, I think we've wrapped up some of the questions. That's nothing else. We still have about 5 more minutes. With that being said, if you do have a question as we go forward, don't hesitate. We'll stay on here for another couple more minutes, but I'm going to move forward for the next slide. This is our contact information from all of our guest speakers, myself, Cherie, Merlene, and Robert. Take that information if you need to. Robert, we didn't want to put your email in there, but if you do want to include that, that's your choice. I wanted just to put your name in there. They can contact your organization outright if they need to email. It's a little more general.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for that, Kirk. I can share it with you. And I do encourage you to contact US Vets if you're in one of our areas, especially in the LA. We're also in Orange County now. Yeah. I operate mental health programs, employment programs, and all of our sites, with the exception of mine, have residential facilities attached in Inglewood, Long Beach. We just opened our first building at the West LAVA, a couple more coming online. So there's so much opportunity, first by the wonderful friends and partners we have with Kirk and Cherie and Merlene at CalVet. And then also, if you do want to check out usvets.org, it's usvets.org. If you want to email me, you have to be patient. Let me know that you saw me here. It's our store, RSTOHR at usvets.org, O-R-G. So it's RSTOHR at usvets.org. And I do have about 1,000 popping in my email box on a regular basis. So be patient. Or if you see my response, remind me that you saw me here.
Okay. Well, let's see. We're going to advance the slides here a little bit and go through some of the information that we have coming up. We do have a whole bunch of webinars coming up through the rest of the month. In follow-up of our Mental Health Awareness Month, we do have some coming up. I think there's 2 more webinars that we have this month, listening to help support mental health. And I think another one, better self-care to manage stress. So those are coming up towards the end of the month on the 23rd and the 30th. But we also have a lot of webinars coming up for our higher learning institutes, Norco Valley College, Cypress College, Skyline, Samuel Merritt, and UC Riverside. as well as Chaffee College. So if you're interested in any of these webinars, go to our Eventbrite page and you can register for any of these upcoming webinars we have throughout the entire month. And that's kind of when the segue is to register for My CalVet, and you can receive that monthly newsletter and you can get updates on our monthly webinars that we have scheduled for the month. Okay. And again, here is our survey. Please take the time to fill this information out. It just takes a couple minutes. We value that feedback. We use that information to constantly tweak and improve our webinars to make them more available to you and the information and resources that you're looking for. Again, this is CalVet's information. I'll contact our 800 number, our website, and our email to the CalTAP unit. We do have our CalTAP staff manning that mailbox on a monthly basis, rotating. So somebody will reply back to you and provide you with that information if you put a question in there. Again, our social media, and we will be uploading this webinar on our YouTube page shortly. It does take our communications division a little bit of time to review it and format it to the correct format before they can upload it. So give it a day or a couple days before you access it there. I believe Sherry may have put the PDF of this slide in the chat. So I'm not sure, Sherry, did you upload the PDF of that and drop it in there?
Working on it right now.
Okay, so she will put a PDF in the chat real quickly. So if you would like a copy of this presentation for future reference, you can download the PDF of the slides. Once that populates in there, I'll go ahead and move forward since it is now 11 o'clock and we can prepare to close. With that being said, we want to thank you all for your service. Thank you for joining us. Here's the PowerPoint in the PDF format. So if you need to download that, you can access it. And you will be able to access this at our YouTube channel or our archived website on our homepage. All right, with that being said, everybody, I'd like to sign off. Thank you for joining us. We would look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you, Robert Storr, for his wonderful presentation and that valuable resources on communication. We look forward to partnering with you again soon, Robert. We appreciate you for time and effort that you put in with us. Thank you, Merlene. Merlene, thank you for joining us. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you all. Do you want me to stop recording, Kurt?